Right, hello. So, time for a Sunday stream. I'll be streaming for hopefully about an hour. This is a public one rather than the members one. As I've said loads of times, if you want to join the membership thing, there should be a button down there. It's about £2 or $2 a month. And that means you get to see some exclusive videos and streams. The nice thing of the members only streams is because there's less people on there tends to be less spam in the chat, so generally we can go into more detail into topics, and like if somebody's looking for a bit of surplus or whatever, it's easier to hunt something down for somebody because you've not got loads of people spamming stuff like what's your favorite gas mask, like how old are you, all those sort of questions that you tend to get on the streams where people have come on for like the first time and they don't really know what to ask. So hello everybody just joining. As I said, there's not really any theme for this one. The only bit of UK news that's sort of interesting that I'm aware of is that the government's planning, I think, on definitely ending the lockdown on the 2nd of December to then have less strict rules for the bit leading up to Christmas so everybody can enjoy Christmas, which is going to be a fucking disaster if, we don't have a vaccine or whatever. Cool, Logan. Which model of Swiss Army knife? The one I have, I think, is called the Hiker or the Camper. I think it's the one I have. I like it because it's just like the bottle opening sort of slimline one. Yeah, bear eggs are nice, aren't they? Gumball War. Very simple, but they work fine. You can adjust the calibration on it inside, but I'd only recommend you do that if you're familiar with electronics. But it could be just the background radiation is quite high where you are, potentially. Have you got any other Geiger counters to compare the background dose with? Because with mine, I did edit the background radiation sort of calibration. So on background, it would always be green, because I found in some areas near me, even though it would be marked as safe background on some Geigers, it would be pretty much going straight into yellow. I'll do a video on that at some point, Radiac Maniac. I can't remember if I've ever managed to cut this out. I think it has cut out on some hot sources, but a lot of the time I think it just pegs on the red. But obviously bear in mind this only goes to I think a couple of millirontgen per hour because it's in a microrontgen scale on this one. But basically, if you wanted to use it like microsieverts, green is something like 0 to 0.2 microsieverts. Yellow is something like 0.2 to 0.4 microsieverts, and the red is something like 0.4 to maybe 1 microsievert. It's a tiny range on this one. But yeah, but the point is, isn't it? It's not one that you use really to know an accurate measure of radiation. You just use it to know, is it background or is it higher than background? And if it's higher than background, like what's going on kind of thing. Because again, this was built when, electronics are pretty simple. And the idea was just literally so a civilian or somebody without any training could look at the color code and know what the radiation was. So hello to everybody. If people are asking about buying certain masks, as always, it depends on what sort of price they are. If people are charging way too much for them, don't bother at the moment. Oh, you got an FP203 filter. That's cool. Preppers in the wild. So you've got the big kind of safe old retro filter. You can put that on pretty much any Soviet mask you want, which is the good things. It's certainly not Rontgen, unless you mean micro Rontgen, Gumball War. But yeah, it's certainly not Rontgen, because 60 Rontgen per hour would be a dose that would kill you pretty damn quickly. That's certainly not, micro. Yeah, there is somewhere, isn't there, where it tells you the range of it, but also that depends a bit on calibration. But yeah, the point is, because micro Rontgens, 60 micro Rontgen, I think is... No, wouldn't it be 600 microrontgen would be 6 microsievert? I can never remember because I never use microrontgen because it's such a small number. It was just kind of microrontgen was used on the very low scales of basically high accurate scintillation counters sort of back before, more modern units were used. I like Rontgens for high levels of radiation because they basically, it means you don't have to kind of think of millisieverts and sieverts, you just have to think of Rontgens. As in, 1 Rontgen is a level you never want to be at, and the more higher you go, the faster you die, kind of thing. I don't know what you mean by I got wrong with a Canadian. What do you mean you got wrong with a Canadian? That's cool, you got a new GPU, so you can play what new games on it. No, it can't detect alpha radiation. It uses a standard Soviet SBM-20 tube, which picks up beta and gamma. It's quite a sensitive tube. The SBM-20 is kind of like the most popular Soviet, probably the most popular Geiger tube ever designed. If there's a hole in the food can, Iron Man, it can become contaminated. Otherwise, if the can was sealed properly, only the outside would become contaminated and you could wipe it down. That's why most rations for like shelters were always designed to be in like metal cans, so there was no chance that something could get inside it. If you mean Gumball War, if you mean Americinium-241, that's alpha and a gamma emitter. Yeah, I like the Half-Life games. All right, Mike. When you say brighten up, Joshua, do you mean like it's getting better or what in terms of R rate or something completely different? With filters currently, there's not loads of options due to Corona. Your best bet is to find sites that just sell filters for industry, where they actually have to price them competitively, because companies have to buy them. If you've got an old AM241 smoke alarm, the Bereg will, if put point blank to it, the Bereg will pick it up, just not crazy levels. All right, yeah. Well, the thing though I was saying, Joshua, is I'm worried though if they end the lockdown too early before all the vaccine is ready, kind of things, we might get completely fucked again. Because if they have a vaccine that's guaranteed to be working and they have the logistics to roll it out, at that point, I don't think there's a problem ending the lockdown. The issue seems to be if we're ending the lockdown in assumption that everything with the vaccine is going to go right and going to time, then that's a bit of a worry. But obviously, yeah, I'm very pleased with the news on the vaccine. You just have to hope they get it out in a good time frame. Now, on my desk Radiac Maniac, I never keep anything radioactive in front of me here for obvious reasons. I said that I've got some low-strength samples over there. Everything else I keep in the safe. Not played the new Cyberpunk game. Didn't it get delayed again? No, the Avon M50 needs the specific M50 filters. It uses proprietary filters, Pyro and Engineer Main. A bit like how the GSR uses the GSR filters, unless you modify the mask. Old ones, Adam, use Americinium-241 in an ion chamber. Smoke blocks the alpha radiation. It breaks the circuit, therefore starts the alarm. Americinium-241 is basically a very strong alpha emitter, a weak gamma emitter. Basically a smoke alarm uses a thing called an ionization chamber, which is what some detectors use as well. Geiger counters don't use ion chambers, but ion chambers were used on certain models of radiation detectors. But the point in a smoke alarm isn't really that it detects radiation, it's if it stops detecting radiation, therefore breaks the circuit when smoke gets into it, because alpha is very bad at penetrating things. What is in build an ionization detector, Radiac Maniac? If you have enough skills of electrical knowledge, you can build your own. There's videos of people make them out of multimeters and literally like metal cans, because an ionization chamber is a very simple thing in practice. It's why they were developed in like the 1920s. Yeah, you can buy loads of stuff like that online, Peter Aaron. You just want to check the laws in your country before ordering it. Yeah, Russian Rooster, but it's not something I'm going to risk, because literally gambling your entire channel on the fact that somebody else has done something and not been punished on it is a pretty bad policy to take with YouTube. You can get AA batteries to fit in it, Gopnik, if you modify them, as in like you put some foil in front or behind the battery and kind of a custom sleeve, or you bend the contacts, things like that. There's different ways of doing it. But in general, the IMD5 is the reason I like that. It's just because it takes standard C cells. Yeah, I just like these sort of fluffy lumberjack. I know what you mean, but yeah, these lumberjack jackets are pretty nice, because what they actually are is kind of more like a jacket rather than the, like thing. So you wear a different shirt under them, so you don't get horribly sweaty. But the idea is that these just are pretty good at trapping heat. That's good, yeah. That's the thing, Richard. I've always liked the 1796 Sabre, but the only goodish one I knew of was the cold steel one, and that's not all that accurate, is it? Can't have a gas mask seal with a long beard AK-47. That's the problem. Yeah, that's the thing. It depends where you are and what batteries you can get, but buying a radiation detector and then not being able to get the batteries for it is kind of a big problem. Where did you buy it? If you bought it on eBay, you can get your money back, Gumball War. But that's the reason I recommend most people buy stuff where they get bioprotection. It's only when I need to get stuff that you never really see turn up on eBay, I risk, paying people specifically to get me something. That's interesting. So why is that? Is it because it puts some of the current through you? You said this. That's very interesting. But so I know of like 9 volts, you can actually put them on your tongue to check if they've got any electricity left in them. Or, charge, I should say. Nerd Central, I've downloaded a load. I need to still get hold of the Silver Turk because I can't find that anywhere except for buying it for like 15 quid. But I did get a hell of a lot of them in a single torrent. But yeah. Well, you can send me a message in private about it if you want, if you've got like links to an upload of all of them. But yeah, the Silver Turk I want to listen to but couldn't find. I did watch that. Was it Revenge of the Cybermen? Because I did have that on my hard drive, and I forgot how nice Perry's tits were. That's one of the things with those. Oh yeah, but it was all right episode. I'm trying to think. What my favourite Doctor Who episodes are, but probably things like Tomb of the Cybermen. I like the old black and white ones, in all honesty. Oh, yeah, so the oil is conductive and therefore drains them, yeah. Yeah, you can do that, Gopnik Studio. Just make sure there's no conduction between the two batteries. Because what you want to be careful of is that the batteries don't charge each other, in a sense, and overheat. Because if you're adapting batteries, there's a chance that the foil will touch the other foil, and then you kind of have the batteries shorting each other. Yeah, I like the cold steel Spetsnaz shovel. But yeah, if you do it properly, Gopnik Studio, that works fine. But I would say, not right now, Preppers in the Wild, I would say the best thing to do, if you were going to do that, is make some sort of little cardboard sleeve, like loo roll kind of material. Wrap that around a couple of times to make the batteries a bit thicker. Put a double A in it, and then have foil at each end, and then make sure there's just maybe some sort of tape so the foil can't touch the things from the other batteries. I think Surviving the Apocalypse has done a video on like little double A adapters for the Soviet batteries. Well, I can't remember long names like that, but you've got a little Lego man as the picture. The original The Purge I've seen some of the TV series of it. I think the TV series of it, in all honesty, are much better than the films. I haven't seen The Purge 2, I've heard that's crap. What do you mean by radium bag? If you mean different radium samples stored in the gun safe, it depends if you put them all together or not. And again, like I said, I don't mess about with stuff like that, so impossible to say, Radiac Maniac. And again, like I've said to you before, don't bring that up on here, just because you'll get the fucking idiots that will then try and report me to the police again, even though nothing I have is illegal. So I'll delete your comments for now, but as I said, don't bring it up in anything but really private conversation, because again, I can legally have that stuff, but again, the problem is on here, you'll get people that try and get you done just for fun. Purge election yet? The only Purge I've seen that wasn't the first Purge is the one that's kind of meant to be like a prequel one. Isn't the Purge siren just like a tornado siren, though? Yeah, it's alright. It's just like I said, the problem is on YouTube, you can't openly talk about stuff like that just because there's people that, literally, it's like when people ask, like, we're on Weapon Collector's stream yesterday and asking him, like, certain self-defense questions. It's just not something you go into because it feels a lot like entrapment. Now, I've seen the films, but I'm not going to look up a random video while I'm doing a stream. It's kind of a bit off topic. Fave historical war movie. I really like Where Eagles Dare, but it's not very historically accurate. Battle of Britain's excellent. Tora 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 is also excellent. You mean the Pope, Mike? I don't know. I'll have to see if there's any more news on that. Let's see. Here's the thing from 2 days ago. Yeah, it wasn't very good illustration, but I just kind of wanted to do the thing in explaining inverse square law because it's one of those things where a lot of people don't really get why, being deeper into a building is better for fallout, and it's basically because there's more distance between you and where the dust lands. Yeah, the Vatican has said it's investigating after the Pope's official Instagram account liked a photo of scantily clad Brazilian models. Very nice. But like we were saying the other day, as long as it's not an underage, not an underage child, that's actually probably good PR for them at the moment. Yeah, well, as I was saying, Protect and Survive explains it quite well. But the problem is a lot of people look at Protect and Survive and then say that's all crap because, like, oh, you wouldn't survive a nuclear blast. It's like the point of fallout protection isn't being in a direct blast zone; it's being downwind of a blast zone. Yes, potentially. If you didn't notice it was doing it fast enough, got because it could literally burn out your Geiger counter or start a fire. In modern houses, not really Gumball Wall. In old houses, anything with radium paint on is a massive, thing that gives off radiation, as in radium watches, radium clocks, because they have radium paint on with radium-226 in it, and that's very radioactive. Gives off alpha, beta, and gamma. Certain materials used in concrete and things like that, or brickwork, can sometimes have bits of uranium or thorium in. They'll be slightly radioactive. If you've got thorium lamp mantles or other old things, that's a little bit radioactive. Uranium glass that sometimes used to be in old household ornaments, that's slightly radioactive, but most uranium glass is very, very weak. Now and again, you'll find uranium glass that's a bit spicy. And the only other thing I can think of is the old Fiesta ware stuff. But again, that's more of a collector's item, so most people don't just have it laying around. Yeah, if it's not got radium on it, Gumball, it won't tick any faster. It has to be literally radium paint. Like if it's glow in the dark but not radium, it doesn't matter. It's not a Nixie watch. If you mean a clock, no, it's one that you can just get online. Yeah, maybe Richard. Yeah, smoke alarms, as we were saying earlier, but the guy was on about smoke alarms, so yeah, I assume he didn't own that. I've watched To Catch a Predator ages ago. Chris Hansen, take a seat right over there. But they've not done any series like that in ages, have they? And I think that was because they got into a bit of legal trouble where it did turn out to be a bit entrapment-y. And did they investigate it properly, Corey? Because I've not read that, but is it again? If it's a particle respirator, then it's going to have a massive difference. If they just mean putting a shit bit of cloth over your face, then no, it's not going to make a difference, is it? We've been all over all this before. Again, the problem is just simply saying mask doesn't say how protective it is. But wasn't it because they got the wrong bloke or something? Again, I don't know too much about it because again, I've not watched every series of it. But I know they did get in a shitload of legal trouble over something in it. It was basically what ended the series. Cone-shaped items. Don't know what you mean by that, but that's interesting. What do you mean? Why did a kid throw a clock out the window? What are you on about? I'm very confused by some of your comments tonight. Yeah, that's the problem, Flazzy, when it's not a members stream. That's again what I was saying. If you want to have a better stream, you have to join the members experience because there's less people on, so they ask better questions. And they're normally people who've been on the channel for a while, so they don't ask stupid questions. Yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, the PMKS and 4 are very similar, aren't they, from what I understand? It's just, yeah, there are slight differences between them, but either of those, I'd say, are good masks. I know Joshua's been timed out by Marcus, but I don't think Richard is being a Bible thumper in the slightest. You know, if he makes a joke comment towards a Bible verse, that isn't being a Bible thumper. But oh, as in a cartridge or something, or a like actual firearms item, yeah. You also get tritium sights on some firearm things, and that's slightly radioactive tritium. But the size of most tritium samples are barely radioactive because the glass stops most of it escaping. All right. Why did the kid throw the clock out of the window? Because he wanted to see time fly. Ha ha ha. Some spit for that one. I said that. No, SC. The most best sounding stuff I picked up on that people were saying in the comments was probably natural radon washout. As in, what radon washout apparently is, for the people who explained it, is basically where you have things like, natural radon gas that gets basically into the air, into the rain, comes back down with the rain, and you're noticing the decay products from it due to the fresh rain, whereas if you went out a few hours later, most of them would have decayed. I'll do a video on that, Lesser Grims, before I send it back to Noah, but I'm assuming most modern helmets work fine with PMK, although I don't have Soviet helmets to test it with. Wow. As in modern Soviet and or Russian helmets. I've got some old Cold War steel pots, but I've not got any modern Russian stuff, unfortunately. So, you're saying you've got a P3 mask and you're getting breathless. Does it have a proper exhale valve? Because one of the problems seems to be for some people, if it doesn't get the sort of second-hand air or whatever you want to call it out of the mask fast enough, you're breathing in kind of humid air that's got more carbon dioxide in it. That'd be my only thought. If you've got one where it's got good airflow, that shouldn't be a problem. I think I've seen some of his videos, Nerd Central, on like some of the older firearms I'm more interested in. Yeah, I know it was inductive tea cake. Like I said, it wasn't really radioactive, but it's more than background. If you put the IMD5 on the lowest setting, it normally stops about 0.025 or whatever it is, and it doesn't drift very much. It's pretty stable. But the fact it was going to 1, it was definitely picking something up. But again, like I said, I was only out and about for the sake of messing about with a meter that day. Whereas if I'd have known something was going to go on, I'd have brought a shitload of meters, and some test tubes and everything to put stuff in. I have no idea then, I'm afraid, to sing, because, like I said, I'm slightly asthmatic and I really don't struggle at all in most masks. Well, funnily enough, Philip, I mention him quite a bit on here. Surviving the Apocalypse is N.I. Bunker, isn't it? The guy with the RAC post in Northern Ireland who reviews Geiger counters. You probably know I watch his videos because I comment on a lot of them and he mentions me in his videos. Oh, it's really hard to say AK-47. If we on just a ballpark thing on filters, what materials are used in the filters? Typically, more modern filters last longer because they have better materials in them and better manufacturing standards because time's gone on. A lot of it depends how well they're sealed. Like a sealed filter with foil wrapping around it is going to be a lot better than just a filter that's got like a plug in the bottom and a plug in the top. It really depends and on what the type of the filter and what you're using it for. But some modern filters are meant to have like 20 to 30 years guaranteed working life when kept in their sealed packaging. But lots of older filters only had like a 5-year life, on their old thing. It wouldn't be radium gumball war, but it could be like depleted uranium or something like that was used in some cartridges. Not on a live stream, Gotnik. I think I've done it in videos, and it's a pain in the ass. The easiest way is folding the mask inside out slightly. Right, John Dillinger died for you, or Dillinger, sorry. If your surplus store has a Yugoslav helmet for €10 and a Kevlar Pasket for €60, I'd say get both of them at that price. If it's a modern Pasket, it should be level 3A. If it's an older Pasket, it should be level 2. Both is all right, but 3A is obviously better. The Yugoslav steel helmets are pretty damn good. They're some of the best steel helmets out there, in my opinion, out of the old lot. As in, like, comfortable liners, pretty good head coverage, pretty good steel quality. Right, the guy who keeps spamming random comments that aren't related to the stream I'm getting rid of because he just seems to be doing it because, it's a funny meme. All right, Stu. But the easiest way of doing it, Gopnik, is literally turn the mask inside out as much as you can. Tell you what, I might be tempted to do it for you just because I've got one handy. But the most difficult thing I'd say of the PBF is resealing this bit. Let me put... I had a lay-in Joe, and then I've been doing some stuff on the PC. I've really not done much today, in all honesty. But, as soon as I have to go back to work, I'll be having pretty busy weekends. But at the moment, with Corona, that's not happening. And Israeli masks are very good, as long as you get the proper Israeli ones. Right, if you're taking the filters out, first you need to take these plastic caps off, because these seal the filters onto the mask. Now, there's no real easy way of getting them off other than getting a screwdriver under them and sort of prising them up in enough places, then they flick off. They're just held on via friction. So that's where your intake valve is and the plastic seals. What was that, rugby or football, Flazzy? Like I said, I'd probably watch that if it was on. I'd rather have Scotland had won, but, a lot of the time I don't even look up what's on TV. See, if it was rugby, I actually would watch it. But again, it's one of those things of I never think to bloody look if it's on. When are the next rugby matches on from this lot? Because if you tell me which days the next lot are on, I might actually make the time to watch them, or at least have them on while I'm doing something else. Right, okay, there's both of these off. I've taken off the screwdriver. Let me show you how you take the filters in and out of a PBF. Right, the easiest thing to start off with... Oh, they're actually on Amazon Prime, are they? Right, I can definitely watch those. Is get this bit and do this. That way, the filter, comes out quite well. You're going to have to pull a bit here, because that's where the rubber seals the filter. There we go. That's one out. Let's do the same for the other one. So, as you can see, we've got one empty filter socket there. We've got one that's got the filter in it. So, open it up. Do that. There we go. That's the filters out. So there you go. I hope you're watching because I'm not doing that again. That's how you take the filters out of a PBF. So as you can see now, it's just got the empty cheek sockets. Yeah, the proper Polish MP5s are good masks, Ricardo. Not the what do you call it? French ARF masks. I can't remember what they're called. I've got better at it in Central over time. That's the only reason. And these aren't as difficult to put in and out as some of the other cheek filter masks. The Bulgarian mask is fucking awful with cheek filters. What's that? Bulgarian PDE one, is it? Which is like a lower quality Bulgarian copy of a Czech M10, I think Duke said. So it's literally got nothing going for it. It's kind of like a copy of an M17 that's then been copied to a lower standard. Right, so anyway, let me show you putting the filters back in. This is definitely the harder part. So what you want to do first is kind of turn the mask as inside out as possible. That just means it's easier to get into the bit you need to shove the filter. You get the filter, and obviously this is the bit that goes outwards, because this is the bit that, the thing snaps onto, if that makes sense. So what you want to do is kind of just start shoving it in. Hope you get it sort of in the right angle to begin with. And what you should have is basically, you'll end up getting this happen, where the filter's kind of gone into the pouch, but it's not lined up yet with the hole. And what we do is you kind of start twisting this around until it's roughly in the right place. I'm saying this is the frustrating bit. And the more frustrating bit is actually getting the next bit done. But then you just basically, when you've got your thumb, in there, so this is near that bit, you peel back the rubber. There we go. And that's kind of kept it in place. There we are. So then what you can do, now that's in place, that will actually hold itself in perfectly fine now because of that sort of strong rubber bit there you have to stretch over. You then get one of these, push it on using friction, push around the edges, and then that snaps on. You've got your cheek filter in. No, it's not overkill at all to wear a P3 mask for COVID because it protects you far better than regular masks. So you can see one filter's in, one isn't. So then what you do, same process with the other filters. Shove that filter in. Again, you're kind of having to just be a bit lucky that, I think if you've got a bigger size PBF, it's probably going to be easier because the filters are always the same size. So I imagine the biggest size face piece PBFs are a bit easier to do it with because you've got a bit more dead space to move everything around in. Right, there we go. So that's that one there. Then again, stretch this over there. There we go. That's that one in. Put that one on. Now, the bit I'm not going to show you how to do, because it's an absolute pain in the arse, is getting the oral nasal cup pegged onto the, using its little spikes onto all those little holes, because that's where your thumbs will be bleeding, basically, from trying to stretch the rubber and putting them on. But that's essentially how you put the filters in and out of a PBF. The mask's wearable at that point. Thank you, Dominic. It's saying the mask's perfectly wearable and usable at that point. The air flows better if you've got the pouches done up properly, because then everything sits right. As far as I'm aware, Stu, there's no difference other than the colour. I mean, I think the rubber composition is slightly different. And I've seen people argue till the cows come home about why they use different rubbers and which rubber's better. But I've never heard like a guaranteed answer for it. Like I heard things like black ones were for like military, white were for civil defence, but that certainly doesn't seem to be the case because there's lots of photos of soldiers with white Shums masks on. Thank you as well, Flazzy. So I don't think it's that. I heard things like blacker export models, whiter internal models, but again, you can find pictures of like the Soviets wearing both types of masks in photos. So I don't think there's really much to it other than they were just making as many masks as possible using probably more than one sheet of rubber. Oh, are you on about washing radiation out, Marcus? Yeah, because conditioners make stuff stick to the hair, doesn't it? But shampoo and like regular soap is what you want to use. No, it's generally pretty hard to get M50s in the UK, Joe. I mean, you can get them now and again, but it's technically, I think, not meant to be sold outside of the US unless a company's buying them like from Avon. So now and again, you'll find them turn up on eBay, but for the most part, C50s are easy enough to get, but they're expensive. Getting a C50 for a good price is the harder thing. All right, Rajiv, you all right? I've done a video, Ricardo, showing the differences. So what I'd say is look up the recent video I did. I've got one side by side, and I show you, like, how this plastic thing looks different than that plastic thing, and things like that. Like the easiest ways you can tell them apart. But yeah, the simple answer is you want to get an MP5, not the French mask, unless you get a French one in really good condition. But the problem is lots of sellers say, these French ones are the actual Polish ones when they're not. Oh, no problem. Never been to Puerto Rico. I've never actually been to anywhere outside of Europe, technically, I don't think. I might have technically been to Africa. Because it's kind of weird where some places have land on different continents, which technically isn't the continent. But yeah, for the most part, I've only been to Europe. Unfortunately, Alex, saving up for the bunker means I can't buy stuff like deactivated rocket launchers and that at the moment, as much as I would like to. You know, there's some deacts on there that sometimes go for like 200, 300 quid. But the issue is, like I said, that for that money, that's kind of like a month's of savings for the bunker gone if I buy one of those. And obviously, I want to get a bunker sooner rather than later. Because again, that's a roof over your head and everything else. What, the filters, you mean Gothic Studio or something else? Yeah, you wouldn't want to. All right, well, thank you very much, Nerd Central. And thank you very much, Philip. They're not my favourite masks. They're good for making content, Nerd Central, as in I can complain about them a lot. You know, like you get those channels that do rage reaction to certain things. They are very good in that regard. Being an everlasting source of content, I guess. But personally, no, I just like filters, you know, masks where you can simply screw a filter on and take it off. No. Which M65 class 2 instructor, the German M65 or the Chinese Type 65? Yeah, Fuzzy, it's weird. It's a bit like buses. Sometimes you have a stream where loads of people donate. Other times you have streams, like, you know, several streams in a row where you get no donations. But the good thing is, obviously, because we're not into December yet, any donations I get now until the end of the month go on this one's pay packet, if you like. Right, user Deuce, it's really hard to say. I've got over £12,000 in a savings account for it so far. I've seen them go as cheap as before, under 20,000 sometimes. But sometimes they go for like well over 30 to 50,000. It really seems to depend on how much land you get with them, where they are in the UK, condition of the bunker, how quickly somebody wants to sell it. Because if somebody's got one on their land, you know, and just wants to sell the land off quickly of the bunker and just make a bit of money, they might put them on a listed price pretty cheaply, then they'll sell fast. Some people, you know, want silly money for them and they never sell them. Not yet, Inductive Tea Cake. I think it only said it was dispatched Friday, though. Yes, Richard, I remember that. Bob, you've not been listening on any of the videos. I'm buying an already built one. No, I don't play Call of Duty Cold War. All right, YS Gray. The post starts coming again Monday, so I assume that the Thermo could come as soon as Monday. Thermo Fisher Decimeter, Radiac Maniac. You know, like one of these, but one made by Thermo Fisher. I caved in and bought one just because I really wanted one. It's not mine, Samuel. You have to ask the bloke who sent it me to do videos on to send it back. I had a weird nightmare last night where I kept paying to send people packages, and then the packages kept getting sent back to me because you can't send people stuff due to COVID. Cheers, GZ Deuce. Fencing, as in fencing, making physical fences in a central fencing, like with a rapier. If there was somewhere near me that did fencing, I'd have probably got into it, but I don't think there is, sadly. Thank you very much, GZ Deuce. It all helps. The bolt on my RPK has been welded shut, LX Saint, so basically it's never going to move. Well, it's pretty scary, isn't it, if you think that, like, you can't send people anything anymore. But I always have weird nightmares. Like, the first nightmare I had last night was something I think to do with, like, Ghostmaster in a haunted house. With people, like, being scared away from a house. Not really scary in the grand scheme of things, it's just because I played a load of Ghostmaster recently. It was sort of, I guess, relevant in my brain. And then, yeah, I had the one all about, like, parcels not being sent and being charged loads of money from, like, customs people sending it back. Yeah, it'd be good to have a little plaque outside LX Saint. I mean, I could, in theory, do that. But, yeah, it's a good idea. What was the, RSCA4 champion said, would you take a small sword over a machete? Right. What are the lengths of either of them? Because if it's a sword the length of a machete, with like 2 edges or 1 edge and a point, I'd probably rather have the sword because it's probably better balanced. if it's an option between like a very big machete and a tiny little sword, I'd probably take the machete in all honesty. Sadly, I don't have any Dutch gas masks. Apparently, there are some cool Dutch gas masks out there, like old retro ones from like the 50s and that, but sadly, I don't have any. I've got a drone Daremaster, but I've never used it properly. Is it on my desk at the moment? Yeah, it's the one Hype sent me by accident and then said I could keep. So it's this little drone. You charge it up via USB, and then you can control it either with an app on your phone, and annoyingly, the app doesn't work on my phone, or a little remote control. I really struggled using it with the remote control because it doesn't seem like, unless you're using the app, that it knows how to stabilize itself very well. I wouldn't mind getting a bigger drone at some point. There's all the bullshit of drone licenses now, isn't it? Because all the retards get flying them over airfields. All right, Richard. In that regard, that might be a bit too long for a lot of uses. Like, it'd be good for thrusting, wouldn't it? But I like it, Bob Marley. I've done a video on it. It's not the best panoramic mask in the world, but it's certainly not bad for when they were going between like £30 and £50 during COVID times. Right. That's a bit different now, RSCA for champion, because I'm much better with a sword now than I used to be, due to building up more muscle mass in my arm and, spending time learning of them. If you were given the option of having one between a sword like the same length as a machete, I would always go for the proper sword because they're generally better tangs, they're generally thicker blades. If you've got a little bit of money to spend, I'd say most people do better with a machete, just because the machetes are way cheaper, so if you smack them about and break them, it doesn't matter. Also, I think I was saying in that video that like lots of machetes are coated to not rust, whereas lots of swords aren't. Yeah, there's lots of context for questions like these. My favourite Geiger counter out of all the ones I've got, if you wanted something that did quite a big range of things, had a bit of retro appeal to it and everything else, is probably the Russian IMD5. Bayonets on rifles are harder to use than the spears. They're not as well balanced. But if you were good with a spear, I imagine you'd be good with a bayonet. Oh, thank you very much, Thomas. I always appreciate that, as always. Yeah, massive thank you to you. Well, I mean, I like both AKMs and Makarovs and Fowls and Berettas. I mean, do I have the option of an L1A1 and a Browning high power? That would be my favourite combination. I've not seen in your comments for a while, Gumball Wall. Right, what's 200 Danish kroners? Let's have a look. That's £23.94. Very nice, thank you. I've been watching, for the people who didn't see, I've been watching loads and loads and loads of Sacha Baron Cohen stuff recently, just because after I watched Borat 2, it completely put me in the mood of watching loads of his stuff. But there's some the stuff of his stuff is like halfway between being really cringy and like really, really funny. But yeah, the Borat stuff I find really funny just because of like how easily he exposes people with like horrible views. Right, so No Central says, so you're in the 18th century British Army. You have to choose to be either a flag bearer, a drummer, or a fifer. Flag bearer, because it's easier to hold a flag, I guess, but I guess you're going to be shot at, aren't you? Weren't drummers technically, wasn't it like against some old rule of war that you weren't meant to shoot drummer boys, but like nobody followed it? Right, I've got a few different types of normal night visions, Daremaster. The best night vision I own is a Gen 2. I've not got like a Gen 2 Plus or a Gen 3. Gen 2s are bloody excellent, because nearly every Gen 2 is pretty damn good. I've got a few Gen 1s and Gen 1 Pluses as well, but in general, I would say, if you've got the money to spend on night vision, go for a Gen 2 or above. Yes, Dominic, but you'd need to post what it is. Were you a Patreon donator or whatever? If so, you need to let me know through there. Because the problem is you'll get people come on here claiming that they are like on Patreon, but then, aren't. I've never used one of those other ones. I have got a katana though. Oh, I'm not the propeller off that drone. I have to put that back on. This, as I said, this is an alright like reproduction katana. Isn't an amazing one, but this wouldn't be too hard to use, at least to hit people with. Main thing I don't like about katanas is the tiny little guard, the Suba or whatever it's called. I definitely prefer proper guards on like big European swords. But the katana, the blade profile of a katana is nice. They're easy enough to use, and obviously you can use it two-handed or one-handed because it's got a longish handle. So you can either use it with one hand and that acts as a counterbalance to the weight, or you can, have two hands on it. You can look them up, Jumping Jack, but for the most point, if they're in your house or somewhere on private property, they're completely fine and allowed. Don't go around stabbing people with them. It's like the basic rule, like most other things. However, there are a couple of sword types that are banned, but most of that is due to kind of like weird reactionary laws to like gangs stabbing each other with like really crap tier katanas. Yeah, probably, Richard. What about does the Russian master cheek filters? What about it, Gumball Wall? Oh, sorry. There's a load of them coming on tonight. If you're asking, does it contain asbestos? Supposedly it does. Spicy air. Well, it doesn't make the air spicy if you breathe through it. But yeah, in terms of asbestos, supposedly it's not a good idea to breathe through an EO19 filter. I don't know if there's ever been like a lab that's got like 100 of the filters and done samples on like 100 of the filters to come back with results, because that would be really the only way of knowing for certain. But when there's been videos of people who have like really good quality microscopes and have done several other tests of them, it does seem a bit suspect, some of the stuff in the filter. Yeah, Alex Saint, we've got CCTV and like really good fences here, but yeah, I appreciate your concern, but yeah, we are pretty covered. I don't like to say what all the security arrangements are here because you don't want to tell people so they can plan against it. But the point is, yeah, we've got some hardware here. Let's put it that. But it could always be more secure. When I get an ROC post, I'm basically fortifying it. It's already a bunker, but I want to make it super fortified. Let me search bathtub gin. Is that a brand? Because I know bathtub and then like a name of alcohol used to mean like poorly made. Or is this Master of Malt bathtub gin? £31 a bottle. So that's pretty expensive. An extraordinary award-winning gin from Ableforth, made using a traditional method of cold compounding, or layman's terms, infusing. Very high quality copper pot still. Spirit is infused with ingredients including juniper, orange peel. So basically, it's just a really nice gin, is it? That's won a load of awards. Because when a lot of people say bathtub gin or whatever, they mean stuff like basically like prohibition area, like home distilled stuff. Depends what you define tiny as, Marcus. If you mean compared to the price of a flat in a major city, no. If you mean compared to a house in the suburbs, yes, they are tiny. Basically, they were designed that 2 to 4 people could live in them at a time, and with 2 to 4 people, and they'd be pretty damn cramped. With one person, they're not too bad for space as long as you optimize your space. Because the thing is, I know people who have lived in like vans and things like that. I've cut down a lot, LX Saint, actually recently. I've not given up completely, but what I've been doing is basically saying where I might have had 2 pints, I'll have 1 pint. When I've had this much wine, I'll have less wine. And I've been doing that pretty consistently for like the last week. As Lewis says on part of a bed sit. What you have to factor in is the price of them, Marcus, compared to like, what they are historically, how kind of well built they are and everything else. You asked that on Mike's stream yesterday, Clorox bleach. As I've said before, I think our self-defense laws are pretty stupid, but I follow the laws because I'd be an idiot to on a video, which is essentially evidence saying I'm going to break the law. But I think a lot of our You know, a lot of our laws could be reformed or made better. It's an ROC post, Rap Gods Official. Let me make the stream full size so I get less reflection. And I'll get you out the handy reference picture to what an ROC post is. That's an ROC post. You've got a little room with a ladder. You've got a toilet behind a ladder, like a little toilet cupboard, you know, and storage room. And then you've got your main bunker room, which is kind of the size of a standard size room in most houses, whether you mean like bedroom or living room or whatever. Again, it's not wanting to focus really, is it? But, come on. Want to focus? No, I don't think it's going to focus. But the point is, with an ROC post, is they're not huge, but like I say, it depends what size housing you're thinking of. You can sometimes also find, but they're harder to find for sale. There's a chemical toilet in there, Nerd Central. Like I said, there is actually a toilet in there. I couldn't, with ulcerative colitis, buy a bunker that had no toilet in it. You don't need a outhouse on top. There's just a little toilet cupboard. What would you mean, getting up and down the ladder, or what? If you want to see the PMK4, I'll hold it up briefly. I did a video on it recently. I'll do some more on it before I send it to the bloke who donated. But yeah, that's PMK4. Very nice. Only thing, strap is a bit shit. But yeah. But anyway, going back to talking about actual things, what you can sometimes find, but sadly a lot of them have been demolished because, you know, people fucking demolishing stuff that's cool because, or why not, let's just demolish it because we own the land it's on, you know, rather than selling it or at least doing something interesting with it. There was a load of old, slightly bigger ROC posts, which were kind of like airfield bunkers, as in they were kind of built to a similar design as the ROC post, but they had like more, you know, storage and room capacity on. So again, if you had the option, that would be better than an ROC post, just for the sake that, you know, you've got a bit more room inside it, because they essentially had several rooms, I think, or like one very big kind of bunk room. Yeah, exactly. The really sad thing is, though, near me, lots of the ones that have been demolished, people haven't built anything on them. They've literally, you know, bulldozed the hatches on them and the air vents and then just poured concrete in a roof. Not really, Jonas. Not these sort. You're going to have probably a big restoration cost when you first get it. And, you know, that's more of painting it, making sure there's no water inside it, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. Then what you want to do after that is basically make it as kind of off-grid as possible in terms of solar and stuff like that. But once you've done that, the upkeep of them is pretty cheap, you know, because you're not going to be paying loads of bills to utility companies because you're going to have to do most of it off-grid. So it's basically a lot of it is kind of upfront costs, then cheap living. Yeah, it is a smart idea, Alexei. Britain had bunkers a bit like the ROC ones. I can't remember what they're called, but they were for like the ambush bunkers. We were on about them on another stream. Yeah, COVID is going to wreck a lot of councils, isn't it, Joshua? Well, PPSH is a submachine gun. M1 Garand is a battle rifle. What's the range of the engagement? M1 Garand is overall more useful, but if you're in urban warfare, you're on a PPSH. What are they called, spy traps? I'm trying to think of the name of what these were. Let me look that up, though, because that's interesting, Captain Fries. I always like looking up things like that, because I find, like, small people bunkers really interesting. You know, just for the sake of the nations that built a lot of them. Yeah, that looks a bit smaller than an ROC post, but yeah, it's that sort of thing. Obviously, that has to have a lot of machinery in, doesn't it, for turning a turret and all that. Whereas an ROC post was just, you know, kind of like just for the sake of, you know, having a little nuclear bunker for reporting. But yeah, let me search British ambush bunker and see if they come up. They do have a proper name, but I can never remember what they're called. Right, I've got some pictures coming up of them. Secret guerrilla army, yes, but what's the actual name of them? Let me just go on an article of it and see if they've actually got the proper name of them. Each bunker held up to 8 men, with hundreds across the country, many of which have now been lost. What was the name of them, though? 23 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 4.2 feet underground at its deepest end. So they're nowhere near as deep as ROC posts, but obviously they weren't designed to, counter fallout, were they, really? I'll link you to an article about one anyway. It's on The Sun, which isn't a brilliant site, but this will at least show you what I'm on about. But yeah, that's the things I'm on about. Britain did have these little things, but they have a proper name, and I can't remember what it is. And in load of the articles, they never mention it. I mean, obviously, it would be clean and all that at the time. It's not going to look full of trash, like the modern, they do now when people discover them because of how old they are and being derelict for ages. But basically, it was just like, kind of a hiding bunker that people could live in behind enemy lines. Yeah, they were just kind of these cool little, bunkers. That was the point of them. Most reliable gas mask. Well, my favourite's the CT12, but it's probably not the most reliable. You're probably going to have to look for the most expensive, simple, modern gas mask. I don't think you can just randomly claim other people's stuff. Basically, an ROC post belongs to the person that owns the land there. I don't think you have any ROC posts that are randomly just sitting on, land nobody owns. But again, it really depends. There's one I'm going to hopefully have a look up in the next couple of weeks that I've probably said to some of you about, because there's one in Oxfordshire. I don't think it's for sale or anything, but you could find it on Google Maps, where it's really close to kind of just a side road. So what I was hoping is I could park near it, hopefully get close to it and just have a look at it. There's a bunker I wish I visited when I went to the Czech Republic when I was in Prague. I really wish I visited the big civil defense bunker there, but I didn't realize it was a thing until after we'd left Prague. But yeah, like Alex saying, says what you have to do basically, if you can find out who owns the land and if there's a random ROC post on there, you can find out if they're willing to sell the land or the bunker if they actually own it, or you just look on sites where people now and again list them. The best thing the best thing is when they're online and they actually give all the details about, all of the stuff, so you can read through it properly, because it's, they do it the same way as when a house is sold or land sold of a house, so all of the restrictions up front before buying it, because you don't want to buy one, do you, and then find out there's a load of hidden fees with it essentially. But I was saying the one near me I'm going to take a look at fairly soon, because it's not one I plan on getting, because the land is going to be too expensive in Oxfordshire, even if it was for sale. But it's more just to actually have a physical look at one. Let me just search it up, Jacob, because you keep asking. Now, if that's like a 5-star, really, really nice bunker, then that would be very, very nice, But in the end of a world scenario where people are struggling to live, I think you'd be quite happy with even a small bunker if you've got supplies in it. I don't think, in all honesty, Jacob, it is the biggest bunker ever made. If you look up some of the old Soviet ones, they were designed for 200,000 people. Again, it might be the biggest private bunker for millionaires or whatever. But in terms of actual massive civil defense shelters in Eastern Europe, there used to be some massive ones. Yeah, that's cool, Captain Fry. Sadly, it was another thing we did in the UK. People were expected to die. But that's the thing. Like that's what I'm saying. The difference between like a lot of the communist nations and the West was in a lot of the Western countries there were no bunkers, or if there were, they were for government only kind of thing. Whereas like you're saying, in a lot of the former communist countries or whatever, they used to make massive like public shelters, and like Finland did that as well, and uh, Switzerland did as well, didn't they? There were like lots of rules, and new buildings had to have a fallout shelter in them. Yeah, ROC posts are normally 11 feet plus deep. It depends where they're built though, and then they sometimes put additional land on top of them to act as more shielding. They generally had a protection factor of 1,000 to 1, which is pretty damn good. 1,000 Rontgen on the surface, you're getting less than 1 Rontgen per hour in the bunker. So unless loads and loads and loads of fallout lands directly on top of your bunker, you're pretty much guaranteed to survive nuclear fallout. As long as you've got enough supplies in the bunker to last out the first like week or so of the fallout. Yeah, it's a shame Alex Saint, isn't it? There's a lot of scummy people on there overselling stuff. Yeah, well, I think it's a given, Jacob, that if you're going to be in a bunker, you need to have air in there so you can breathe, and you need water and food to eat. I've recommended lots before Let's Go Gaming. Right, generally, Flazzy, the worst of the fallout is gone within a day because of half-lives. So, like in an hour of fallout landing, it's a lot less dangerous than it was an hour before. In a day, it's a lot less dangerous than it was the previous day. In most of the old manuals, they said it should be safe to emerge within 2 weeks, or like at 2 weeks of, the initial fallout, assuming that you were careful. Like, it's going to take sometimes years for a lot of the fission products to be down to safe levels. But in terms of like not dying horribly from radiation poisoning, if you're careful outside, 2 weeks after the bombs fall would be when it would be kind of recommended to go out. And I'm trying to remember Nerd Central because they keep changing stuff on YouTube. I'll find a way of getting to you in a minute after the stream. If you've made a comment on the video before, and I'm sure you have, I can contact you via that. I'll try and remember to do it as soon as the stream ends. But Flazzy, the proper government bunkers always put 3 months plus on it, basically because they wanted to be super safe. The people with all the money and power. So for them, it was 3 weeks. 3 months, not 2 weeks. All right, they've removed PMs completely, have they, on it now, Mike? What I'll do, Nerd Central, is I'll give you my email address in a comment that you made on a members video, and then I'll delete the comment a bit after I've posted it so you can see it, but loads of people don't start spamming it. But I'll say the main point is anyway that the longer you wait before going out, the better. And then you still have to be very careful about not getting stuff in your clothes or ingesting it or whatever else. Right, we'll do Nerd Central. I don't know if you saw, Mike, but the person was on earlier asking the same questions that you asked him not to ask on your stream yesterday. About, like, should we have these things that are banned and everything else. Anyway, I'll be off in a minute because I've been on over an hour. It's been a good stream tonight, and thank you for all the donations. I appreciate it. Well, the deeper a bunker is, Bob, if you're on about nuclear fallout, the better. I mean, there's not really a minimum distance, but the more distance between you and the closest surface where fallout could land, the better. Which sign got Nick? The big one, that one. It was just on eBay a while ago. Yeah, it was good, Sheep Stranger. Only annoying thing, I was hoping it'd be a nice quiet walk, but I bumped into loads of people when going for the walk because I guess everybody thought, oh, lockdown, let's go out for a walk. So, it was one of those days where I was hoping that I could go on a walk and barely see anyone and just have a load of alone time. And then it was like, every 5 minutes of walking along the footpaths or the field, you'd bump into somebody walking a dog or, just somebody out and about doing something. Yeah, it was nice to get out and get some fresh air, but I could definitely tell I've not been out exercising enough because, when you've not been exercising enough, it's like how quickly you start feeling like muscle ache in your legs when you've got boots on or whatever. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it, Peach? Because you'd hope if people were following all the rules, you wouldn't be that busy at work. But again, that was my experience when we came out the first lockdown, being a non-essential place I was working in. That it wasn't long before people just started completely ignoring the rules. Yeah, I was saying in the video, Philip, that it's protect and survive is kind of what I'm going off of. I was just trying to explain it in more of a layman's way. But yeah, the idea is that you're in a refuge. Fallout was that's like the protect and survive noise, isn't it? As said, Gopnik Studios, it's not an individual one. It's like a series that the government built in the 50s that now and again come up for sale. So they can be anywhere between maybe less than 20,000 if you're really lucky, to 30 to 50,000. It really depends on how much land they come with and the condition of the bunker. The more land they come with and the less restoration needed, the more expensive they'll be. In general, the less land they come with and the more shitty they are, like the more you have to, repaint them, repair water damage, everything else, the cheaper they'll be. Yeah, I've got a Protect and Survive on there. But like the Imperial War Museum reprint. Ah, cool, Joshua. What's its name? Is it male or female one? I love German Shepherds. Lovely dogs. Yeah, again, it depends where you live, doesn't it, Gopnik Studio? If you live in a country where there was loads and loads of bunkers, you'll probably find they're cheaper now. If you live somewhere like the UK where there wasn't very many, they're cheaper than regular houses, but they're not cheap. But again, when affordable one-bedroom housing they built near me recently is £500,000, £500,000. There's a very thing between £50,000 max for essentially the same size bunker as one of those flats. I'd rather live in the bunker. Then you've got if you had 500,000, you buy the bunker and you've got 450 grand left. For the max price they ever go for. You buy one of those flats, you got nothing. And I have a feeling those £500,000 flats are ones you still have to pay a few different rates on, like once a year. Anyway, I'll be off now. Thanks everybody that's been on. I'll reply to you now on Nerd Central so I don't forget. And I'll probably stream tomorrow, but I don't know if it's going to be afternoon or evening. Probably evening, I think, but it'll probably be a members one tomorrow, just so it can be a bit more of a relaxed chat without people going, do you have a fetish for the gas mask? Ooh, that sort of stuff. So anyway, see you all. Bye.